Parents of Reddit, at what point did you realize you raised a monster? Ex-teacher here. My own kids are far from monsters, but I've met some. When I taught preschool kindergarten, there was a kid who was banned from Inca camps for his behavior, and they had never banned someone before. He brought a plastic, thankfully, knife to school and threatened to cut all of us teachers. Told other kids he would burn their homes down after first setting fire to all their toys. He heard me calming another student who was afraid of bees and mentioning I'm allergic but have never been stung because I don't scare bees. He came up to me, told me he was going to put a wasp nest in my car, lock me in it, and watch me die. He was one of only 2 students expelled from that school in the 15+ years I was associated with it. His mother still didn't realize her son was a monster. She said she ate lead paint when pregnant with him, pica, but claimed he was just fine. Often parents just cannot or refuse to see their children for what they are. I was in court as a plaintiff waiting for my case. They did all the criminal stuff first. One of the cases was this high school senior who had beat the crap out of his 100 pounds 5 feet 0 inches mom. She was crying as she was refusing to have him home on bail. She was scared shitless of this kid. This was an upper middle class family and the kid looked like he was on his way to a good college. She kept saying he did it every time he didn't get what he wanted. Judge sent him to Monmouth County Jail. Not a nice place for an 18-year-old skinny nebbish. Daughter wrote frick you and mama dies with her figure scratched out on a piece of paper the other day when we wouldn't let her make lemonade. She's 8. She's gone on rages and destroyed her room before, including throwing furniture around. Not looking forward to her as a teenager. When he sold my car for drugs. Not my son, but there was a kid in the playground that my kid was playing with. He was about 5 or 6. If he didn't get his own way, he started screaming and hitting other kids at the playground. I advised my son not to play with him, talk to him since he was being a little crap. Didn't say that to me, kid. The kid's mum was in the playground but ignoring her son and loudly playing Pokemon Go. That kid is likely going to turn into a monster seemingly since he is ignored. People think taking your kid to the park is an excuse to stop parenting. Don't get me wrong. Kids are little shoots. So if your kid hits mine on the playground, I'll give you a chance to intervene and discipline your child appropriately. But if you allow it to continue, you better be prepared for me to defend my kid's well-being. I'll toss your little brat into the next county. Not a parent but a sibling. My sister has become a vain, selfish, and loving sociopath. She treats my mum as a slave and my mum loves her too much to notice. My mum was talking to her. She got bored and said, quote, "You can leave now." My mum replied with something like, "You can't talk to me like that. You need to respect me," to which my sister replies, "I have no respect for the bee that cleans my knickers. Leave." I'm in shock. If I said that to my mum I'd be slapped, but she turns a blind eye. You know what? You're right. In order to earn your respect, you can clean your own crap from now on. If only this would work and not backfire spectacularly. My sister abandoned her kids a few times. Just dropped them off with babysitters and skipped town. My mom got drunk one night and said, "Sometimes I think the world would have been better off if I drowned her in the tub." So, yeah. Not my kid but niece. Went to the fridge, took a glass of OJ, and dumped a massive amount of ketchup in it before proceeding to drink it. I couldn't sleep that night. Of course not. You had a body to hide. I'm not done raising her, so I still hold on to hope that we can turn things around. My middle child is 10. She becomes completely uncontrollable when things are not going her way. She tells me she hopes I die. She has told me that she is going to go to school and tell them I beat her so she can go to foster care. Her older sister struggles with depression and cuts herself. She often tells her she hopes she kills herself. She hopes she cuts too far one time. She will go outside and scream at the top of her lungs. She has hit me, spit in my face, breaks things, destroys the house. My ex-husband was extremely abusive towards me. They saw him beat and violate me. It was very, very bad. Once we were divorced, he was court-ordered visitation. It wasn't so bad at first. He mostly just dumped them off on his family members. But as they got older, his drug abuse and untreated mental issues got worse. He turned his abuse towards them. He never hurt them physically, but the mental abuse was there. They haven't seen him in over 2 years. I told the judge I would go to jail before I'd allow them near him again. They both had a pretty rough childhood. I am a recovering alcoholic, so my own issues played into it. I was never abusive, but I was definitely not there for them like I should have been. I was more of a friend than a parent. I'm sober now. We are all in therapy. I really hope that by doing these things that we can make things right. I haven't given up. I still have hope. But it's really hard sometimes. Don't give up. The important thing is that you're sober and you're together and you're getting help, and that's the most anyone can do. My sister is raising 2 monsters. My niece and nephew. The whole family knows. Even their parents know, but neither one of them wants to be a parent and discipline or give consequences for their monsters' actions. My nephew at 7 yelled at my sister at Subway when she asked him to pick out his chips. He screamed, "Shut up you bee. I want to freaking choke you," then proceeded to kick the customer nearest him in the back of the leg. My sister just laughed it off with a defeated, embarrassed look on her face. At my daughter's 3rd birthday party, my niece, 8 at the time, realized she was wearing the jeans she doesn't like, screamed over the birthday song at her parents, told them to fix it immediately. Well, they couldn't. They had no change of clothes. She flipped out, grabbed the birthday cake and threw it on the ground, then ripped her pants off, threw a present on the ground and stomped all over it. No apology, no consequences. My sister offered to pay to replace the gift. I told her I'd rather she paid to send her kids to therapy. She called me a C and said I didn't love my niece and nephew. They're in their teens now and still throw fits if you don't do what they want or let them win, etc. When my brother had his son, Monster nephew started beating him up around 3. Monster was 9. Monster gave the little boy a black eye. Only time he got his butt kicked, and after that it stopped. And the only people my monster niece and nephew are genuinely scared of and behave around are my African American sister-in-law and my Mexican brother-in-law. They've never done anything to them. They're just not white. Anyway, we have secret family get-togethers without inviting them because they always ruin them. We honestly don't like living like this, but we also don't like spending X amount of hours listening to them whine, scream, and demand things while breaking and destroying our property, and you can't say anything to them and their parents won't say anything. It's upsetting. I dread their future. When my son's Tamagotchi died and I was sad because I realized I was the one taking care of it while he was at school and in bed. My son steals my wife's eyeglasses while she is reading on her phone. She can see up close fine, but anything past about 3 feet is a complete blur. He knows this and knows he can get away with taking things off of counters and drawing on things if she can't see him. He's 3. He's a smart little monster. My little brother is autistic. Love him to death, but growing up he had no idea about morals. We had a portable DVD player as kids with a load of DVDs and a couple of Nintendos. He loved them and would always giggle watching them, but one day when he was 4 he thought it would be hilarious to throw them all out of the window and smash them. Another time when we had moved houses, a stray cat was always wandering around. We fed him and sprayed him and our grandmother adored him. I think my brother would have been 6 or 7, but we walk into the garden to see him swinging the cat by its tail in circles, giggling in fits. Now that he's older he'll still kick up and have fits, but at least he knows what things are bold. My son asked me how long he was obligated to interact with me. That could be telling about you just as much as it does your kid. When my youngest moved out, I had always had difficulty with her, but once she was gone I realized how much of a bully she is. Recently she got angry when my partner told her to not guilt trip me and flipped out, called him the scum of the earth, telling me I am a bad mom for being with him when he is so awful to her, saying really horrible things about his children. The thing is that my sweetie is incredible and everyone loves him, except her, because he called her on her balls and stood up for me. I can't even tell you how many times I have cried because of things she has said or done. My oldest daughter is a sweetheart and they are polar opposites. I am concerned there are some mental health issues right now because she has increased her behaviors. Unfortunately she is off on her own, so I can't do anything but ask her to talk to someone. When she looked me dead in the eyes and poured out her cup of orange juice on the ground. It's age appropriate boundary exploration, but still monstrous. Back to the sippy cup for babies. Stopped this quickly with my 3 boys. When Thing A was arguing with younger Thing B and said, "Yeah, well, I'll hit you," and said Mom did it. When he got turned down for art school. The horror. When she learned this lovely phrase, "Mommy, I love you, but how about you don't say I is little." I is basically grown up. She was just barely over 3. She was grown up because she fed the dog a treat. She has developmental issues, mimics adult words rather than use typical kid ones, so her unusual candor has only gotten wackier. Blinks twice. I had to buy security cameras because he was stealing, throwing parties, doing drugs in my home, etc. He looked right in the camera and flipped me off while I was at work. My heart fell. The tentacles were a big giveaway. I'll ask my 18-month-old if she poo-pooed and she'll smile and say, yeah, then when I put her on the changing table and take off her diaper, no, poop. She is on a road to manipulation and psychopathy. There is no more hope. Brace yourself for the future. Big sister here. My brothers were fig-thing yesterday in the room beside mine. I'm hearing everything for 20 minutes straight. I'm having a cold and therefore wanted to see if they could resolve it first. The older brother is constantly using his strength. He is strong, fat and tall, to taunt the younger one, but the older one is wimp who will sit down if you demand respect. The younger is even more of a P. I don't really condone using this word, but seriously, that is what he is. This younger is the middle child. They still don't break it up after 20 minutes. I get there, throw the older out of the room. He gets out, not before he hits him again. I had surgery on my leg a while ago and still in recovery, so really in no shape to step in between, unless I want my other leg to break. The older gets out of the room, then suddenly the middle one gets the courage to beat his butt up. When he's out of the room, I do not touch him but block his exit with both hands to the side of the door. This little psychopath uses all his strength to push on my hands and I almost fall to the floor. He knows all the pain I've been in from my surgery. I get mad and tell him to stop acting like this, and if he really had the courage and wanted to beat the older one up, he should have done it the 20 minutes and maybe more. He starts taking his anger out on me and I've had enough. My headache is so bad at this moment. I close the door and lock with a key by force. He gets out of the window and gets in the house via the balcony. Now this is where his horrible and outright scary personality comes to show. Keep in mind he's only 13. I tell him, what is he doing? What does he want? He talks to me condescendingly and tells me just to go back to my room. I'm always in my room, hee, and just tells to me to shut up. He starts threatening and speaking to me as if he has any power over me. But the scary thing is how calm and poisonous his tone is. He isn't affected by any of the words I'm saying and have zero respect to as a big sister. I'm not demanding any respect, but he doesn't have that love and care we other siblings have for each other. I've always started to notice how he says whatever the heck he wants and then makes into a joke with a cheeky smile. When my dad was going to visit grandma, he told the rest of the family he's just waiting on the grandparents to die, and then he'll be back. I mean, who the frick says that? This was a bit much, but the road that my brother is headed is not a good one, and I'm truly scared for his future. That kid actually needs to get beat into shape. I've snapped like that before and it's literally not fun for either side, and I think he can't really control it. Either that or he can try therapy out. That usually works. Not my kid, but my partner's adult sister is a real handful. A panoply of vaguely diagnosed mental illnesses including bipolar and psychosis. She's on income assistance, which helps, but she goes from morbidly depressed in the winter to wildly high in the summer. We let her move in to get herself out of debt, which she did, but now she's back in another hole. She picks bad boyfriends, the last of which we had to get a restraining order against after he threatened our children when we extricated her from his abusive grasp. And the worst part is that the cycle is never ending. It's been this roller coaster for 20 years, and we're really tired. She's 14 for life, and not the good kind of 14 years old. In public he always pretends like he doesn't know me, and at home I only see him if he is hungry. I recommend to not get a cat because mine is in butthole. Probably around the time the villagers arrived with torches and pitchforks. It's so nice of the Amish neighbors to help out with a nighttime barn raising. I have this story where a bunch of my way younger cousins and me were watching Bambi. One of them started to cry when Bambi's mother died, and another one told him, "Don't worry, cousin, she sure ended in good pate." Ouch. I tried to be a good mother, really I did, but looking back, The deck was pretty stacked against us from the start. Me and my son grew up poor, and I mean really poor, in the back end of nowhere, and I had to work all the time. I was basically a slave. I certainly got treated like one. For childcare, like I could afford that. I used to leave my boy with the owner of the local store, a fat Jewish guy I got to know, and he did his best looking after him in exchange for the little guy helping out. I suppose it was child labor, but what can you do? One day, I got lucky when some rich out-of-towners suffered a breakdown on the edge of town and came into the store looking for help. They were really impressed with my son's resourcefulness and know-how, and they were obviously upset at his potential being squandered, so they offered to fund his education. The only catch was it would have to be at boarding school, because there was no schools nearby worth a dang. I knew I would miss him like heck, but this was his big chance, and I jumped at it. But when he came back, God, he had changed. The next time I saw him, I'd been kidnapped by sand people, and my sweet boy who wouldn't hurt a fly when he was young killed every single one with this lightsaber some idiot had given him. Men, women and children, and he slaughtered them like animals. SMDH. I'm so mad that I read this whole thing. When they started asking for tree fiddy all the dang time. I love that reference. When my daughter was 3, she had a preoccupation with playing with my ears. One day she said, "Daddy, cut off your ears because I want to eat them." Hannibal Lecter right there, ladies and gents. When after taking care of her chrysalis and defended it from the Terrans and Protoss, she took over the Zerg swarm and became a genocidal tyrant murdering billions. I suppose calling herself the queen bee of the universe was also a bit of a giveaway. When he started to run crawl around the house and hiss at me, the dang cat. When he started growing extra limbs and demanding sustenance. Just give Garfield his lasagna, John. Anyone else feel like a good boy girl after reading this thread? When I read his internet history. When they didn't use a serious tag. They put the milk in before the tea. What? He come in through the door screaming and holding a bag of candy, and I said, "Daniel, stop eating that crap, you gonna rot your teeth," and he piffed one right at my face. I look at him out my other eye and he has this look like oh crap and ran for it, and I said, "I am gonna whoop you, Daniel, you shithead," and he jit in his car and drove home, so I cork him, leave a message. "Crap, Daniel, I am at the emergency room for my eye, but it was a trick. When we got to the hospital I was still at home eating chips." What the frick did I just read? When he said he wanted to wee on a dead bird. When nobody wanted to see Marshall no more. They want shady I'm chopped liver. Not a parent and I won't ever have kids for obvious reasons, but I was the monster. I'm not proud of what I've done, but I can't change the past. I lived with an abusive father who often beat my mother, my sister and me. He was abusive physically, beating us, and mentally. My mother said it started when I was 4 months old. My mother always tried to protect us but wasn't always there. I lived in a home filled with hate and violence and never really learned what love or happiness was. I was a pretty violent child with a lot of anger issues. My mother told me I would often hit my grandmother or her, and when my sister was born it was even worse. I hated her and wanted her dead because since she was there I couldn't have nice things anymore. I was 3. I was the kind of child to throw a tantrum because I was not given the present I wanted for Christmas when I had a room full of toys, and I would throw myself on the floor and scream or even hit people and break items, then act as if everything was normal. It took a turn when my best friend passed away. I was 6 and started being fascinated by death. I pushed my sister in the stairs and tried to kill her a few times. Now I could have been helped if my mom had accepted I had a problem, but she refused to think something might not be wrong. With the death of my friend I was forced by school to see a psychiatrist who realized something was wrong and asked to see me again. I never returned as my mother just didn't want to face the truth. Growing up I had a lot of anger issues and sent a few of my classmates to the hospital, but when questioned I didn't remember what happened. It was around 16 my mother realized something was really wrong. I had an argument with her and hit her, then came back a few minutes later and wondered why she was mad. A few days later my father had cornered me while I was doing the washing up. I grabbed a knife, and if my sister didn't see it and reacted I know I would have stabbed him even if I don't remember it. I remember my father screaming at me but not the knife part. When I realized something was wrong I asked to see a psychiatrist who told me I had an illness. Now I've changed a lot and seems like a normal person. I'm 23, really close to my sister, and I don't have any more anger issues. I don't see my father anymore and things seem to be good, except I don't really have feelings. I never did, but I still know what I did was bad. To all the parents here, if your child acts in a way that is not normal, bring them to a psychiatrist. It's not something to be ashamed of, but someone that is ill won't change by himself. When he jumped into the lake and said they wouldn't come out unless I gave them $3.50. Years of academy training, wasted. My kid puts ketchup on oatmeal and bananas. Ketchup is a flavor masker, just means they don't like the flavor of oatmeal and bananas. When he grew blue fur and raided the cookies in the pantry. 4 weeks ago I asked my son to take his mother to the doctor. He never showed and turned off his phone. Didn't hear from him for 2 weeks. When I called him and asked him to come by, he didn't, again and again turned off his phone. 4 days ago his daughter was born. He called his grandparents, his friends, and posted it all over social media. We found out this morning when someone told us they saw the pictures on Facebook. He doesn't want anything to do with you. That doesn't mean he's a monster. It means he is ready to cease having a relationship with you. That's all. A lot parents find that the birth of their child motivates them to remove crappy people from their lives. It's entirely possible you're part of the purge. This is the goodest flyboy. He will bring you 10 years of happiness in exchange for a like on this video. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.